What are you wearing?
Oh, okay, yeah. I should explain that. Well, as this is a film that takes place in the 60s, I thought I would wear a 60s shirt.
Is that a 60s shirt?
I don't know, do I look like I'm from the 60s?
You look like a twat.
Do I look like a twat from the 60s? Fair enough. I look like a twat in his 60s. Welcome to our review of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is Quentin Tarantino's 9th film, and it's about a load of different things, but essentially it's about an actor and his stunt double who are sort of struggling with maybe being past their prime.
Well, it's weird because you say it's about a lot of different things, and I agree, but at the same time, it's also a lot about nothing. If you get my drift.
Okay, yeah, it is. So this is a criticism that a lot of people have had, is that it's basically a hangout movie and there's not much plot. I personally don't have an issue with that at all.
No, it's very character driven, and it focuses a lot on specifically Leo's character and Brad Pitt's character.
Not necessarily together as much as you
would
think.
Not together.
Like, I know there was a point in the film and I realised, like, we haven't seen Leonardo DiCaprio for so long, and then about half an hour later I was like, we haven't seen Brad Pitt in so long. And it's, you know, it's just the way it is, but I would have liked them to have a bit more screen time together.
Well, in a way it's good because each character has their own plot, which allows them to dive into their characters more than, say, if they were just talking between the two of them.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you want more of them, but if it was literally just them two together driving around, you would go, okay, we need more than this. So it's striking that balance.
It focuses on the kind of people they are. Like, a lot of Leo's plot revolves around his acting career and him believing he's not exactly the same caliber of actor that he used to be.
Yeah.
While Brad Pitt is mostly just trying to find his place as a guy who no longer gets hired for a lot of production.
So recently I saw this argument that Tom Hanks has kind of hit a level where he doesn't get nominated for performances that he should get nominated for because it's just expected of him to give these great performances. And Captain Phillips was the film that people were talking about. I feel like Leonardo DiCaprio is not at the level where he's not getting nominated, but I haven't really heard that many people say what a great performance he gives just because he's kind of expected to. But there's one scene in particular where... So he plays an actor called Rick Dalton who plays a character called, I think it's Caleb Descartes or something like that. And there's a scene, and it's all done in one take, where Leonardo DiCaprio is acting on set. He's acting as Rick Dalton, acting as Caleb Descartes, and Rick Dalton as an actor has a different style of acting than Leonardo DiCaprio has when he's playing Rick Dalton. So it's like this, it's like an Inception kind of thing, funnily enough, because he was in Inception. And basically, you see him doing his lines, and he's acting as Caleb Descartes, and then he fucks it up, goes back to Rick Dalton, talks as Rick Dalton for a bit, then goes back into Caleb Descartes, and then goes back to Rick Dalton. It's all done in one go, and it's just so complex. Like, I can't think of a scene from a film or TV show where I've really seen that level of, like, meta-ness.
A lot of people are calling this a love letter to Hollywood, and I think it's scenes like this that encapsulate exactly what they're trying to get at.
And honestly, I think a lot of the whole love letter to Hollywood aspect, I think, will make or break whether you like this movie, because, like we said, there's not a whole lot of plot, and if you're into films like we are, and you are because you're watching this, then I think you'll really dig it. But if you're sort of a casual audience member who you're not familiar with maybe the way that films are made, or you don't really care about film as like an art form, then I think there's going to be a lot of like jargon, like industry jargon, that you're just not going to care about.
Yeah, it's very different to a lot of Tarantino's other films as well. There's not that much action. It's like we've said, there's a lot of talking, a lot of character-driven performances. But when it comes to the action, besides a bit in the third act, which is just awesome, there's not really that much in terms of physical performance. It's mostly just showing Leo do a lot of his acting, then Brad's doing his own scenes, and then Margot Robbie is also playing Sharon Tate, but she's not really a key factor in this film. I don't really know what her purpose of it being in it is. Probably just to show like the kind of reaction an actor would get after just breaking into Hollywood for the first time, which is kind of the road that Sharon Tate was on before things happened.
Yeah, so I think there's a few reasons for Margot Robbie. I can completely see why she's not necessary for this film to work. No. I agree with that. But I see why she's in there. So like
for Tarantino's foot fetish.
Yes, exactly. So we'll get to that in a bit. but one of the reasons I think she's in this is Tarantino. He said his first like influence for this was like the stunt double and the actor dynamic, and then he said after that he got obsessed with the idea of 1969. So, it's just all these different things in play. There's the film industry stuff, there's the Manson stuff, there's Sharon Tate, there's Bruce Lee, and it's just an extra ingredient for the film industry stuff. So I kind of see why she's in there.
Yeah, pointed it out a bit earlier. No one's really going on about Leo's performance in this film, and I think the key reason why is because everyone's so in love with Brad Pitt's character in this film.
And you can see why. I prefer Brad Pitt's. I don't think he gives quite as good a performance, although I will say he does give a good, understated performance. But I think Brad Pitt, I preferred the scenes with Brad Pitt to the scenes with Leo.
Yeah, it's probably one of my most favourite Brad Pitt played characters.
Yeah. Same.
There's a lot of scenes where he's just like the coolest guy on the planet. He's so badass, and you just want to be his friend. You don't want to be his enemy.
You don't want to be on the wrong side of Brad Pitt, no. So the soundtrack for this is largely music from the 60s. And again, like we were saying with Leo and the performance thing, I feel like Tarantino's also at a point where it's like expected of him to have a great soundtrack in his films. So now it's like not even a talking point. Like again, I don't think I've heard one person say like what a good soundtrack. But if this was on any other person's film, we'd be raving about this soundtrack.
This is a great nostalgia trip. There's a lot of songs even I recognised, and I was born in the 90s. But there's a lot of classics in here, and they mostly come about at a time where one of the characters is just driving around Hollywood, and it does feel like really like you are on a journey with this character.
Yeah. While we're on the driving around thing, another criticism that people have given is that it's not necessary for these driving scenes and scenes where people are just listening to music. And again, I agree it's superfluous. It doesn't have to be in there, but I think it just helps add to the tone of the film. And for me personally, I didn't mind that. I thought the film was self-indulgent. I think that's Tarantino's greatest weakness, honestly.
Yeah.
I think this and The Hateful Eight in particular have been quite self-indulgent, but it's not those bits that make me think it's self-indulgent. For me, it's like the needless shots of Margot Robbie's feet while she's asleep, or the shots of people, like girls bent over, and you just get like the lingering camera on their arse, like the male gaze. Or even all the scenes where you see Rick Dalton in his various TV shows and films. Like, I didn't think we needed all that.
No.
All the really long fucking excessive monologue, well, not monologue, voiceover at the end, which is, it got to the point where it was telling you stuff you didn't know but you could have shown, and then it got to the point where he was telling you what was on screen. Like Brad Pitt would be putting a lead on his dog, and it'd be like, then Cliff would put a dog lead on his dog, and you'd be like, yeah, we could see that. Like, we don't need to tell us this. I don't know what that was.
A bit more specific than that. Just
no, that was literally one of the lines. It was like, then Cliff went home and put the dog leash on his dog, and then it was like, and fucking Rick Dalton went and made himself a margarita while we're watching him make a margarita. It's like, why do we need this? So I do think it was self-indulgent.
I just meant that they actually refer to the dog by name.
Okay.
His dog.
Then the main character put the leash on his dog.
Took Cliff's dog back to Cliff's house for some Cliff margaritas.
Which is not in the Cliffs. The set design for this film is, like, frankly, fucking like pitch perfect. Not only is it's so good. It's like editing. Like this, if set design is too good, you don't even notice it. It just blends right in. You don't think about it. That's what it is for this film. Like,
it just becomes the norm. You're like, okay, I'm in this world now. This is how things look. And I guess because it's back in a time that a lot of people would recognise as well. There's a lot of familiarities that people will pick up. Yeah,
I mean, I've never been to Los Angeles. I've never seen Hollywood Boulevard in real life, but I've seen pictures of like what it looks like now compared to then, and it is a complete transformation. Like in some regards, it's quite similar, but it's in the details. It's like the little posters in shop windows, or like it's just in the details. It's
all about the little things.
So.
That's why I tell my girlfriend anyway.
So the cinematography as well, that was something I thought was good. Not in the traditional sense of like, wow, that's a gorgeous shot, although there are shots like that in it, but in the sense of like the camera movement. Like from the first, like when the credits come up and you see like Leonardo DiCaprio, Brad Pitt, and there's like that one take where the camera's like slowly pushing backwards, and and then they come into the car and drive off. Like, there's a lot of scenes like that, or like the long take where DiCaprio's on set acting in that Western, or there's just loads of like really interesting and inspired camera movements.
Yeah, they use the camera that they are using for the filming as well.
Oh, so something that I've just thought of, which I completely forgot about, there's a bit where DiCaprio's on set talking to another actor. They're not in character, they're just talking to each other. And it just like randomly cuts to like later on in the conversation, and then it does it again. And it was really jarring, and I can only assume that's some sort of reference to like how celluloid is used back then. But like, did you notice that? Because first time I noticed it, then instantly forgot about it. But the second time I noticed it, because like when I saw it a second time, I was like, yeah, what is with that?
Isn't it where he was saying about how he almost got cast in the film? And then it cuts back to him auditioning.
No. It's in that same scene, but he's saying that, oh, how did you get cast? And then it cuts to the same shot, but just like a second later. And it was really jarring, but it kind of reminded me of Death Proof, the way that they would like use old film techniques to make it look like. So I think I can only assume that was what was going on there. But
I don't remember that. The only ones I picked up on were like the flashback ones, where he was saying one thing when in reality this happened. Yeah. Like,
that's a fucking lie. Yeah.
I guess that's something we have to point out as well. It's probably one of Tarantino's funniest films.
I think it definitely is his funniest film. Yeah. I would say 100%. Yeah.
And that's mostly in part to just how good Leo and Brad act.
But yeah, so I do think that one of my biggest flaws with this is its self-indulgence. And I don't think it needed to be quite as long as it was. But,
This has quite a few of the same flaws for me that Hateful Eight does, in the sense that it's a bit too long, there's a bit too much dialogue when there doesn't need to be, the pacing could have been a bit better. But this is just the style that Tarantino does his films now, and you can't help but think he'll probably do exactly the same for whatever his 10th film will be. And in a way, like, some people enjoy that, which is fine. But I feel like that's not exactly what made people fall in love with his films in the first place. Like when he had
dialogue.
No, not the dialogue, but his films just had a bit more of a natural flow to them.
Yeah, they're a bit like tighter constructed and a bit less baggy. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like his recent ones have definitely been too full of a certain trope that not everyone will get behind.
Yeah, I think you can pretty much point out self-indulgence in any one of his films, but I think in particular post Inglourious Basterds, like I think Django is near enough perfect for me until about the last 15 minutes, and then it feels a bit baggy, a bit loose, a bit tacked on. Hateful Eight I found really self-indulgent, and I found this. So I've seen this twice. The first time I watched it, I really found it very self-indulgent. The second time, not as much. I was able to kind of sink into it a bit more the second time, but I still think it was more self-indulgent than it needed to be.
How you got through that, I'll never know. 6 hours of your life you spent watching that.
Yeah, but I really liked it for the most part.
Yeah. I can't wait for him to bring out the 4-hour version on Netflix.
Oh, no, right. I'll watch that.
Yeah, no, you will.
On repeat for like a day. Just real quick, while we're talking about Tarantino's self-indulgence, Tarantino also referenced a few of it. I noticed a Kill Bill reference, a Pulp Fiction reference, and an Inglourious Basterds reference. And it's like, why reference 3 of your own films? Like, it's just a bit too self-indulgent. They're subtle, granted, but
in a way you can see why. Like, if he is ending it at 10 and he's winding down, he is obviously gonna have like a Tarantino highlights of his own. But
to be honest, this actually feels like it should have been his last. Like, I'm not saying I don't want him to make another one, I absolutely do, but this feels like this should have been his 10th. Like, it's really self-reflexive, it's really meta.
In terms of the idea, yes. In terms of the execution, because I don't think it's his strongest work, I'm in a way glad, because now
you want it to end on like a higher note than this.
He can take, I don't know how he reacts to certain critique anyway.
Not well.
No.
I reject your hypothesis. Fuck off.
But I'm hoping that we still love him. He's just...
I love his films. I don't really love the guy.
Yeah. But I think when it comes to his last film, he hopefully can take some of these criticisms and use them to make the best film.
Yeah, I hope he reins it in a little bit with his last one. But, we'll see.
Make it a bit more like the films that he's done previously that we grew up loving.
Yeah, like his early films, they were like tighter constructed.
Yeah, and that's fine. That's the kind of thing I mean. Like, the length doesn't bother me. It's just what is in...
That's also what your girlfriend says.
Hey. But it's not...
Weird flex.
Shut up. Let me get my point out.
That's what you say to her. Okay, go on. Spit it out.
It's too real.
That's what you say to her.
Yeah. Comedy gold. That's what we should have named ourselves.
Comedy bronze, maybe. What were you going to say?
I don't know.
Now, even though the third act was fucking awesome, like easily one of the best scenes I've seen all year, I do think it still could have been, like the build-up I think could have been more intense. Like I can't help but think back to like Inglourious Basterds,
Yeah.
or even Django Unchained, like that big dinner scene. And I feel like they just had more of a build-up and reached higher levels of intensity. I felt like this kind of, it wound up and then the string snapped a bit soon, maybe. Ah! Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah, it worked.
Hey! Hey! Hey!
It's not fun when you do it.
It wasn't fun when you did it. It was for me. Okay, right, let's go. We're assuming that... Why do that? Fuck off. You can do it again, isn't it? Okay, we're assuming that most of you have already seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, but if you haven't, it's worth noting that there is a mid-credit scene, which is just like a minute long. It's like a little jokey bit.
It's not essential viewing. But
worth noting that it's there if you want to stick around for it.
It's a bit of fun, especially if you enjoyed the film. Yeah, we're going to touch on minor spoilers from here on out. So if you haven't seen the film, I guess a quick summary would be it's good, a bit long, a bit too self-indulgent, but the cast give off great performances, and it's not really his best work, but nowhere near his worst either.
Yeah, it's middle of the pack, I think.
So if you're a Tarantino fan, I think you'll enjoy the majority.
Yeah, if you're a Tarantino fan or a film fan, you'll like it. If you're not super bothered about how Hollywood works or about the film industry or how films are made, I think you'll find this very, like, esoteric. But, yeah.
But yeah, so we'd recommend you go see it, and now from here on out we'll be talking about spoilers, so you'll have 5 seconds to turn off, go watch the film, and come back. That was more or less 5 seconds. We're here! Spoiler time!
Holy shit, the third act.
Yeah, that was a great final act.
It was. Obviously it came out here like 3 weeks after it came out in America, and I watched a bunch of reviews, and the one thing that every review had in common was everyone was saying the third act is fucking nuts and it's the best part of the film. And I was so looking forward to it. And then when Brad Pitt goes to Spahn Ranch and, he goes to check to see if George Spahn's all right and all the hippies are outside, I thought that was going to be the finale.
I thought he was going to have a full-on brawl with all the hippie ladies.
Yeah, and then, he beat that guy up, but then, they had the voiceover and I was like, oh shit, is that how it's going to end? That was, disappointing. But then it gets to it and you're like, okay, this is worth it.
What I'll say is that people refer to it as the third act, but this is probably, 9/10 of the way through the film.
Yeah, it is. It's like the climax. It's like the last 15 minutes, maybe?
15 to 20 minutes, yeah. And it's a great 15 to 20 minutes. It's just a bit of a slog to get there. But once it does get there, it's like, oh boy. And this is what I meant earlier with Brad Pitt's character in particular. He's just such a badass.
Yeah, he is. And do you know what, right? It would be so easy for Tarantino to have just made this third act that the Manson family come and Brad Pitt kicks the shit out of them. But I don't know why he added the ingredient of Brad Pitt being on acid. I guess just for the humour.
Yeah.
But that made it just so much better than it already would have been.
But yeah, this bit where Cliff has to basically fight off the Manson family whilst
tripping balls.
Yeah, exactly. It's just such a funny mixture of action and comedy, and I think it works really well.
Well, that's actually I was saying, why did he put that in there? Well, one of Tarantino's staples is. I forget the name of the technique, but it's basically when you mix opposing tones. So with Reservoir Dogs, when there's the ear cutting scene, and he uses Stuck in the Middle with You. I think it's kind of to achieve that same effect, where it's
It was a weird way to finish off the film, because I didn't know where it was going for half the time. Because a lot of the focus is just how Rick and Cliff are dealing with life in Hollywood, really. And so you didn't really know how things were going to play out towards the end, or if Sharon Tate was going to play into it, the Manson family. And then they do, but the Manson family are the hippies that we ran into earlier on in the film, which I thought was maybe a bit too... Convenient, exactly, yeah.
I can see that, but at the same time, I don't know.
They did a good job of making them unlikable, so you really appreciated it when Cliff smashes that woman's face in.
Fuck me.
And then the best bit is obviously when one of them crashes through the window and into the swimming pool.
And Leo sat there with his headphones on, he's like, what the fuck?
Nick Doyle's just chilling to music, and all of a sudden some crazy psychopath with glass stuck out of her face and a knife is screaming at him.
Shooting a fucking gun.
Casually walks inside and grabs his flamethrower and just lights the bitch on fire.
Yeah.
I think it was just brilliant.
It was brilliant.
It was unexpected, but to a T, it was just a perfect way to finish this film.
It was
on a high note.
I thought before I saw the film, I thought Bruce Lee was going to kill the Manson family. Like, that was like a theory that I'd read, and I was like, yeah, that seems like the most Tarantino thing that could possibly happen.
Yeah, the way it was marketed, you thought he'd be in it a lot more prominently.
Yeah, what was
but
he in
he's
one
not.
scene?
He was in. Yeah, it was in like a decent sized scene. It was like 5 to 10 minutes, and I can see in a way why his family might be upset about how he is interpreted in this film. But at the same time, it's just it's just a bit of fun. Like, I don't think people should really take themselves that seriously,
No,
which is
I
what
know.
Tarantino's
Well,
saying.
yeah.
And if anything, Bruce Lee's family has proven that point for being all like high and mighty about it. In a way.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. He thinks too much of himself. Well, we don't think you should portray him like that. Well,
How dare you talk about the most lethal weapon on the planet like that?
But that's another thing, though, is like Tarantino, he didn't just write him whimsically. He read like biographies about him.
He did his
and
research, exactly. Yeah, there's
Watched a lot of interviews and stuff.
He didn't do this for like the fun of it. He did it because this is the way he interpreted Bruce Lee as being as a person, like not just a character.
And I would throw out there that it's almost more respectful in a way to portray someone honestly, even with their flaws, than it is to just paint them as a perfect picture when that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Keeps them true to form.
Yeah.
I admit they might have slightly overstepped it when they had Cliff almost beat him in a fight.
Yeah, that's one of the negatives for me is the power level that Tarantino attributes his characters in this film is nuts. Like, for him to write a character and go, yeah, he could beat Bruce Lee in a fight, it's just fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
But Tarantino is kind of fucking ridiculous in the best way. So.
I mean, did you see his abs when he's on the roof and he takes his shirt off?
Woo! That guy's like 50-something. And he's got a fucking...
That's 50 years of ass-kicking experience, my friend.
Yeah. Speaking of the Bruce Lee scene, though, that was one of the funniest scenes in the film. And when we talk about this being Tarantino's funniest scene, like the scene that stands out to me as being funny, like the most funny was when Rick Dalton's having that breakdown in his trailer.
Oh yeah, he's just freaking out.
And he's like, if you don't get your lines right, I'm going to fucking blow your brains out.
He literally walks into the trailer and the first thing you see is like a phone or a brick or something fly across camera and smash through a window.
Yeah. And then he's like, you fucking drink too much. You couldn't have stopped at 3 or 5. You had to at 8 fucking... Like,
you can stop when you want to, takes a sip.
Yeah,
right, that's enough.
Yeah. I'm never drinking again. Fucking cuts to him down in a drink. Yeah, that was a fucking good scene, man. And it's, again, like, it's all in the performance. Like, it would be...
It's some of their best work, at least of recent times. Like, you could say Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, he's given so many great performances that I can't necessarily say it's up there with his best. Yeah. But it's also so good.
Brad Pitt is a little more hit and miss, but mostly hits. Like, I don't think
I haven't really seen him miss, to be honest.
World War Z. That's all I'll say.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, like they had a strong leading cast. I still think Margot Robbie was a bit underutilized, but at the end of the day, Tarantino had a 4-hour cut of this film, and we saw it was like, what, 2 hours 40, 45, something like that. Yeah. So maybe all the Margot Robbie scenes were cut from the film, you never know.
When it comes to rating out of 10, we both struggle with this.
Yeah, it's because it's such a mixed bag.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
a lot of great performances in this film, and a lot of the scenes are great, but at the same time, there's a lot of unnecessary parts of the film. The pacing is a bit too on and off, so to speak.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just weird. It's like one extreme or the other, because some people will find this really boring, while some people will find it really interesting.
On a technical level, I can't really fault it. Like you say, the performances, the cinematography, all that sort of
camera
stuff.
work.
It's a very well put together film.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of like subjective flaws, like say the pacing or an overabundance of self-indulgence.
Yeah,
that's a fucking sentence. It's got some really great scenes in it, but it also has a lot of flaws. So
I think that's the general consensus as well. I've heard a lot of people highly praise the film, and a lot of people have been very critical about it. So I think this is one of those rare cases where you just have to see it and get your own thoughts and opinions.
For the most part, I really like this, but it's definitely not without its flaws.
Yeah. So that being said, it's very hard to rate it out of 10, and I don't think we can without changing our mind almost instantly.
Thanks for watching this review. We've got a review of Good Boys coming out soon, and we're going to do a Tarantino ranked, and we've also got, we're going to be on the lookout for news from D23 as well, so we have got that kind of content coming up.
Just a quick note as well, we've just passed the 250 subscriber point, which for us is insane, considering we've only done this channel for getting on for, what, 2 months now, if
about that.
Yeah, so that support is insane. Thank you so much. We will not let you down.
Yeah, we don't know why you thought it would be a good idea to click subscribe, but we thank every single person who has, or even if you've just watched this video and give it a like, or just watched it and enjoyed it, or whatever.
Because you keep following people on Letterboxd.
Yes, yeah, that's why. Yeah, we don't know why. I think we do know why, Dan.
Thank you all so much for the support. We will hopefully be a bit more consistent with our uploading from now, at least for a little bit anyway. We went through a rough patch recently where we just couldn't meet up to record, but we're back, at least for a week. So hopefully we'll be able to get a lot of stuff recorded for you guys.
We've got a new way of doing thumbnails, so our thumbnails are going to improve, and we've got some other stuff that's going to improve the channel as well. So all that stuff.
We're constantly trying to improve.
Yep. Yeah, it's the only way really. We can't really go worse. Thanks for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one.